Hello, I would like to demonstrate the proper removal of a small turntable replacement kit on a Model 1600 Azuradisc scratch removal machine. I want to first start by removing the disc retaining knob and disc retaining plate from the machine, setting them aside. The small turntable is located right here that the disc is placed on during operation. This small turntable, after time, threads can be worn out and stripped, creating the need to replace this part. To properly remove this part, you first start by removing the rubber grommet that's placed underneath the edge of the small turntable. By pulling down with your fingernails, you will remove and expose a small set screw on the side of the small turntable. This set screw is located right here at the back of the machine. Depending on where the machine is stopped, the location will be in a different place. I've located it by touching it with my finger, and I'm going to take the larger of the two Allen keys supplied with the small turntable replacement kit, and we're going to remove that small set screw from the side of it. That set screw locks the small turntable into place onto the shaft that it rests upon. I'm going to remove that small set screw completely, avoiding dropping it into the drain of the machine, and setting it aside carefully to reuse after replacement of the new small turntable. Next step, take the smaller of the two Allen keys supplied with the small turntable replacement kit, place it into the hole on the top of the small turntable, which should have a brown rubber plug placed into it. Before putting the Allen wrench into that, use a small pin or a safety pin to pry that plug out of place, setting it aside to be reused after the replacement turntable has been secured. Placing the smaller of the two Allen keys into the center hole, into the small set screw located just in there, by turning to the right clockwise, this motion will force the small turntable up off of the shaft. If you do so very carefully and very slowly, trying to avoid any stripping of that set screw, the small turntable will then raise until eventually pulling off of the shaft that it's mounted to. Now, in some cases, water oxidation builds up on this shaft, freezing the small turntable onto the shaft. Even with the complete removal of the small turntable screw on the side and the turning of the top set screw, you cannot remove this because it has become frozen on there. There's only one proper method to do this when it's frozen on. This would be the way to go about doing that. Use a small steel plate or steel rod that will reach across the entire basin of the 1600 model, giving yourself a nice firm place for a two-prong gear puller to do the work of pulling the small turntable off of the shaft. This can be thin, thick, doesn't matter, just as long as it doesn't flex or bend. Once you've got something on here to rest across here, you'll want to take a screw, electric drill, drilling a starter hole into the plate so that the point on your gear puller will rest into that point, keeping it from walking from side to side when turning down trying to remove this. Once this is placed with the set starter hole directly over the top of the small turntable, take your two-prong gear puller, not three-prong. These gear pullers are easily purchased at your local hardware store or auto parts store, but a three-prong will not line up properly with the edges on the small turntable, so be sure to get a two-prong puller. Place the pin or the center screw of the gear puller into your starter hole, allowing your two clamps to rest under the edges of the small turntable. Once you've secured these two levers underneath the lip of your small turntable turn clockwise on the center screw. This will raise the turntable up off the shaft completely straight, properly. If it is too hard to turn by hand, use a wrench and continue turning clockwise until the small turntable is pulled directly up off of the shaft for easy removal of those frozen and tough to get removed small turntables. Now, it is natural instinct to avoid acquiring the proper tools like I did here, and to use something such as a pair of vice grips or pliers to clamp onto this small turntable and try to pry it off. This should not be done in any circumstance, because when you grab this and if you pull off in any direction other than straight up, you risk bending this shaft. This shaft is located and machine pressed into a chassis located within the machine. If you were to bend the shaft, the machine won't work properly, and in order to replace that shaft, the entire machine has to be taken apart, rebuilt with the machine press pressing that back into place. So please avoid the natural instinct of wanting to grab a hold of this and pry off with a pair of pliers. If you can't get it off with the first method demonstrated in this video, use the second method of a bar resting across, two-prong gear puller, properly pulling the small turntable up off the shaft.